What if the most ordinary places, those bustling hubs of transit we pass through without a second thought, actually hide the most extraordinary dangers? Airports, with their bright lights, constant announcements, and rivers of people, project an aura of controlled chaos, a temporary sanctuary between destinations. But beneath this veneer of normalcy, a different kind of current flows, a world of unsettling encounters and chilling possibilities that few ever truly glimpse. The stories you're about to hear will peel back that familiar surface, revealing moments where the mundane transforms into the menacing, and the journey itself becomes a source of creeping dread. Imagine embarking on a long-anticipated trip, a multi-leg journey that promises adventure or reunion. For one traveler, let's call him Alex, this was exactly the scenario. Standing at his departure gate in a sprawling international airport, he first noticed the man. There was nothing overtly threatening about him, yet his gaze was undeniably intense, a fixed stare that seemed to cut through the surrounding noise and activity, landing squarely on Alex. It was the kind of look that prickles the back of your neck. Alex tried to dismiss it, just a random face in the crowd, perhaps someone lost in thought. He boarded his flight, the man momentarily forgotten amidst the usual boarding shuffle. But a seed of unease had been planted, a tiny, nagging feeling that something was slightly off-kilter. He told himself it was just the stress of travel, the anonymous press of too many strangers in one place. Hours later, after his first flight landed, and he navigated the labyrinthine corridors of a connecting airport in a completely different city, hundreds, if not thousands of miles away, Alex felt that familiar prickle again. As he approached his next gate, scanning the faces for an empty seat, his blood ran cold. There, sitting calmly as if he belonged, was the exact same man from the first airport, the same intense, unblinking stare. This was no longer a coincidence. It was an impossibility, a statistical anomaly that screamed of intent. Waves of nausea and genuine fear washed over Alex. Who was this person? What could he possibly want? The man made no move, no gesture, just continued his unnerving observation. Alex's mind raced. Was he being targeted? Was this some elaborate, terrifying prank, or something far more sinister? He couldn't shake the feeling of being hunted. With his heart pounding, Alex quickly changed his path, ducking into a crowded airport shop, then weaving through throngs of people, desperately trying to put distance between himself and the silent watcher. He glanced back once, but the man was gone from his previous spot, which somehow felt even more terrifying. Had he lost him? Or was the shadow simply biding its time, ready to reappear when least expected? But escaping one shadow, as Alex was about to learn, sometimes only leads you to stumble into an even more direct and chilling interaction, where the threat isn't just seen, but spoken. For another passenger, Sarah, a seemingly endless flight delay became the catalyst for a deeply unsettling experience. Seeking refuge from the cacophony of the main terminal and the frustration of ever-changing departure times, she wandered away from the crowded gates. She found herself in a quieter, almost forgotten wing of the airport. The lighting was dimmer here, the shops fewer, and the foot traffic sparse. It felt like stepping back in time, a relic of an older airport design. As she walked down a long, echoing corridor, hoping to find a secluded spot to read, a figure emerged from a nondescript doorway. It was an airport employee, or at least he wore a uniform she vaguely recognized, though his demeanor was far from the usual helpfulness. His face was stern, his eyes sharp, and he moved with an air of quiet authority that was instantly intimidating. He didn't ask if Sarah needed help, nor did he offer any pleasantries. Instead, he blocked her path, his stance unyielding. "You shouldn't be in this section," he stated, his voice low and devoid of warmth. Sarah, taken aback, began to apologize, explaining she was just looking for a quiet place. but the employee cut her off. "This area is not for passengers. There are things here. Things not meant to be disturbed." His words hung in the air, heavy with unspoken meaning. There was an urgency in his tone now, a strange intensity that went beyond simple rule enforcement. He gestured vaguely down the corridor behind him into an even darker, less maintained area. "It's best you return to the main concourse, immediately." Sarah, thoroughly unnerved by his ominous message and the palpable sense of unease emanating from him, didn't need telling twice. She mumbled an apology and quickly retraced her steps, the employee's cryptic warning replaying in her mind. What things was he referring to? What secrets did this old part of the airport hold that staff were clearly aware of, yet seemed determined to keep hidden? Reports sometimes claim that large, older airports have these dead zones, sections with unsettling local legends attached, places where strange occurrences are whispered about among long-tenured staff. Sarah couldn't shake the feeling that she had brushed against something deeply unsettling, a hidden layer of the airport's existence. While some warnings are spoken, others, as another traveler discovered, arrive in far more terrifying and tangible ways, turning a simple mistake into a nightmare. Consider the exhaustion of a red-eye flight, the blurry disorientation of arrival in a new city before dawn. Mark, a businessman on a tight schedule, was eager to get to his hotel. He navigated the baggage claim, spotted a suitcase that matched his own, same color, same size, same brand, and, in his haste and fatigue, grabbed it and headed for the taxi rank. It wasn't until he was in his hotel room, unpacking for a crucial morning meeting, that he realized his critical error. He unzipped the suitcase, and his stomach dropped. The contents were shockingly, horrifyingly, not his. Instead of his neatly folded shirts and business documents, he found a collection of items that were deeply disturbing. There were strange, crudely made tools he couldn't identify, bundles of unmarked cash, and a series of photographs of unfamiliar locations, taken with a unsettlingly covert perspective. The implications were immediate and terrifying, hinting at something illicit, something dangerous. A wave of panic surged through Mark. His own suitcase, containing his passport, his laptop with sensitive company data, and all his personal identification, was out there, in the possession of whoever owned this horrifying bag. And, more chillingly, this unknown individual now had his bag. Accusations could easily surface if he was somehow linked to the disturbing contents he'd inadvertently discovered. He immediately contacted the airline, his voice trembling as he tried to explain the situation without sounding like he was involved in whatever sinister activity this bag represented. The airline promised to investigate, but the real horror for Mark was the gnawing uncertainty. Who was the owner of this bag? Were they looking for it? Would they, perhaps, try to find him? It's been said by those familiar with the darker undercurrents of travel that such luggage swaps are not always accidental. Sometimes they are a deliberate tactic for moving sensitive items, relying on the anonymity and chaos of baggage claim. Mark spent the rest of his trip looking over his shoulder. The image of those strange items burned into his mind, wondering if a knock on his hotel door would be the airline or someone far more dangerous. But perhaps the most terrifying encounters are those where the threat isn't just implied through an object or a warning, but feels profoundly personal, even following you to the perceived safety of your own home. For Lisa, arriving home late after a significantly delayed flight was meant to be a moment of relief. The journey had been fraught with turbulence and missed connections, and all she craved was the comfort of her own bed. As she moved through her darkened house, performing the usual post-travel rituals of dropping her bags and kicking off her shoes, she noticed something odd. A flicker of movement outside her living room window, a faint, almost imperceptible shift in the shadows of her backyard. Exhausted, she dismissed it, a stray animal perhaps, or just her overtired mind playing tricks on her. She drew the curtains and tried to push the unsettling image from her thoughts, attributing it to the lingering stress of her chaotic travel day. The familiarity of her surroundings was supposed to be a balm, a return to safety and predictability. However, a few days later, the unsettling feeling returned with a vengeance. A concerned neighbor casually mentioned seeing an unfamiliar dark-colored sedan parked down the street near Lisa's house on several occasions since the night of her return. The car, the neighbor noted, seemed out of place, its occupants never exiting, just sitting there. Then, while doing some yard work, Lisa found something near her property line, partially hidden in the bushes. A distinctive, brightly colored luggage tag, the kind often sold in airport gift shops. It wasn't hers. A chilling realization began to dawn. Someone might have seen her at the airport. Perhaps noted her solo travel, her exhausted demeanor, the fact she was retrieving multiple bags. Rumors sometimes suggest that opportunists and those with darker intentions occasionally scout airports, looking for vulnerable targets, for houses they know will be empty, or for individuals they can track. The thought that the sanctuary of her home had been breached, even if only by surveillance, that someone had potentially followed her, transforming her safe space into a place of quiet, gnawing fear, was more terrifying than any overt threat. The airport, a place of departure and arrival, had become a point of origin for a menace that had now, quite literally, come home. The brightly lit corridors and bustling terminals of airports are designed to facilitate movement, to be transient spaces. Yet, as these unsettling accounts suggest, they can also become theaters for the unexpected, the unnerving, and sometimes the truly terrifying. They are places where paths cross in fleeting moments, but where some encounters can leave an indelible mark, a lingering sense of unease that follows you long after your flight has landed. The next time you're navigating the crowded halls of an airport, surrounded by a sea of anonymous faces, perhaps take an extra moment. How will you truly know who's just another weary traveler, eager to reach their destination, and who might be watching, listening, with a purpose you can't begin to imagine, hidden just beneath the surface of the everyday? What unseen stories are unfolding around you in the supposed safety of the terminal? The truth is, you might never know.